So why are we here? This is certainly one piece of the story. In terms of telephony, mobiles overtook everything else in 2002, and it's pretty clear that we're headed towards the point where everybody on the face of the earth will have a mobile telephone in their hand. And eventually, maybe a decade later, they'll all have mobile internet on their handset. But it's pretty clear right now in China, in India, in remote parts of Asia, and increasingly in Africa, everybody is getting a mobile phone of some sort or another, at least getting basic voice telephony. So just to comment, although I'm talking about mobile telephony, what we're interested in, of course, is the data rates you can get with things. So this is just a nice summary. I'm going to go into a lot of depth about what 2G is, what 3G is, and what the 4G, so-called 4G technologies are. But if you look at the data rates in this world that has come entirely from voice telephony but has managed to add in data and get data to work, these are the sort of rates that are actually achieved here. The biggie for 2G systems, of course, was GSM. Group System for Mobile is the current definition of what the GSM acronym stands for. It was somewhat later to the game than the other 2G technologies, but it was mandated across all of Europe, and it was standardized much more so than any of the American technologies. So it actually got multiple users, multiple operators, and multiple vendors competing, built a low-cost ecosystem that resulted in adoption in Asia and other parts of the world. And today, GSM is the dominant world standard. About 80% or 81% of all mobile phone systems in the world today are 2G GSM systems, or 2.5G, or evolutions of 2G GSM. 81% of the subscribers, if you count the 3G variants of GSM, which are radically different technically but branded the same way, that's 88% of all mobile subscriptions in the world. With 2G GSM, we had this incredible adoption. The question for any of these 2G things was, how do we deal with data? And the one that won was GPRS, General Packet Radio Service. Basically, you aggregate a bunch of voice channels, which after all are carrying digital information in these 2G technologies. You aggregate a group of them to provide on the order of 115 kbits a second of packet capacity, and now you send packets which you statistically multiplex from different users based on instantaneously who needs to send packets. You queue them up and you send them over this one bonded channel. The point was that this was additional equipment to support it. It worked on top of and didn't require any changes to the voice. So let me just give a quick, cute picture of what 1G, 2G, and 3G multiple access technologies are. 1G was basically frequency division multiplexing, typically 30 kilohertz channels, each broadcasting on a different frequency, but using that same frequency indefinitely until you hand it off to another cell. In 2G, the majority of the people went to time division multiplexing. That is, they built a digital radio that used a fairly wide band, and then they sliced up in time tens of milliseconds per user and rotated around, so they were supporting multiple users multiplexed in time. CDMA, which was Qualcomm in the 2G and everybody in the 3G, uses a coding thing which I'll describe in a moment. And as we move to 3.5G and 4G, and we'll discuss orthogonal frequency division, multiple access, and so forth, basically the path forward is simultaneous optimization in time and frequency and various coding algorithms, multiple antennas. Everything you can think of to optimize is being done simultaneously. So there's no simplistic thing the way there was with 1G, 2G, 3G. Increased data rates, we certainly got that. Multimedia, voice, data, and video, we've got that, but with some caveats that I'll discuss later. a lot more capacity. These systems are much more spectrally efficient, so you can get more voice telephone calls into the same spectrum. And they moved to a data-centric architecture, but in 1992 that meant moving to ATM, asynchronous transfer mode, because nobody believed that IP would work. And in fact, the telephone industry didn't finally embrace IP probably until 99 or 2000. And so UMTS has won. It is the market leader. It got there for not technical reasons, but commercial reasons. It's the successor to GSM, which is the most widely adopted thing in the world, so it was like a no-brainer to say this is the one that was going to win, even though CDMA was ahead and remained ahead, in fact, until very recently. In fact, you could argue today that in deployed systems it's still ahead. However, 3GSM wins. TD-SCDMA, this is the Chinese version. It was originally developed primarily as an intellectual property, that is a patent bargaining policy, because Ericsson and Qualcomm owned all the CDMA patents. There was no way that, Huawei, ZTE, and these Chinese manufacturers were going to be able to compete. The Chinese government, because they have an enormous market, the Chinese market, was in a position to say, here's a new version of things where we require your patents, but if you want to participate, you're going to require these things that we patented. And it did bring Ericsson and Qualcomm and the others to the negotiating table. As I mentioned, they went for a single band of unpaired spectrum so they could be asymmetrical on upload and download, very data-centric from the very beginning. They also, getting at it late, they had a number of things in terms of design efficiency, so you can argue that perhaps it's better or not. You can certainly argue it. Very good match for asymmetric traffic. China is the largest market for anything. It's the largest mobile telephony market in the world today. 630 million subscribers when I last looked. That was a few months ago. Largest population in the world, and they're adding more cell phones there as rapidly as India or anywhere else in the world. They delayed the award of 3G licenses until they could get the TD-SCDMA technology to work. Last year they had 10 cities with trials running, 15,000 base stations, and they finally got handset deliveries in March of 2008, and it began to work. And a couple of weeks ago they finally granted the 3G licenses. So China Mobile, which is the largest mobile operator in the world, is going to be using TD-SCDMA. China Unicom inherits the part of the 3GSM network. They're going to evolve to wideband CDMA, HSDPA, do the 3GSM path. And China Telecom inherited the CDMA 2000 network, and they are moving, well, they inherited the CDMA1 network, and they're moving to CDMA 2000 EVDO Rev A. We don't know what they'll do after that. So 3G, it is taking off around the world, but Japan is the interesting thing, because Japan was ahead of everybody in adoption of 3G. They literally had commercial service of sorts in 2001 and real viable service with battery life that was usable in 2002, 2003. Service took off after they introduced some really good handsets in March and April of 2003. Today, it's just about, it's beyond 85% adoption as of December, and there is discussion about them turning off their 2G network in 2010. So that puts them really ahead of everyone else in the world. So if you look at 3G subscriber stats as of last summer, 18% of people were on 3G, 82% on 2G, and virtually no one left on 1G. If you look across Europe and the US, the interesting thing is percentage, the subscriber base is, of 3G has caught up in the US. The growth rate is much higher. So it appears that the US is actually pulled ahead of Europe in terms of 3G adoption.